Who? Oh, Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting. I'm going to give everybody 1 more minute and then we'll get started. I believe in starting on time, so we end on time. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It is 2:03. So welcome to the quarterly homelessness task force meeting, September the 16th, 2021 report out. First and foremost, we'll go over the housekeeping items and virtual etiquette. To let everyone know, I have muted everyone. So as the actual presenters come up to present, then I will unmute you at that time and you will receive a message saying that you can unmute yourself. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Tamika Laird and I'm the Director for the Office of Resilience and Community Services. Well, along with our co-chairs, our co-chairs are Natalie Harris, the executive director, excuse me. She's one of our co-chairs of the Homelessness Task Force meeting. And then also Mary Frances Schaefer. And she's the co-chair of the Homelessness Task Force meeting. And she's also part of, she co-leads the continuum of care. And then now Frances is the Coalition for the Homeless. Sorry about that. First and foremost, always be respectful. All participants are muted on entry, as I said before. Use your Zoom controls on the left to make text larger or smaller, because depending on the actual presentation and how you view it, some of the words might be smaller, so you can enlarge them. Use the chat box throughout the day for the presentations and questions. Therefore, there will be time at the end of the actual meeting to be able to have a question and answer session. This presentation is recorded. I just want to let everybody know it is recorded, and we are actually running concurrently with Facebook. So it's a great opportunity to get out there and get engaged with our community and educate our community on homelessness. So I want to thank you all for attending. And now we'll start with the agenda. So this outlines exactly the report out for today's Homelessness Task Force meeting. First and foremost, Will King, which is our HMIS administrator, will be doing his presentation on HMIS reporting system. Second, we will have Tamika Laird, which is me, who talks about the housing solutions for phase approach, just to give an update to our community and those who are here today. Third will be the Homelessness Services Division intro. Kay McAfee, we have a great new division. They're doing a lot of work in our community around best practices, gaps and barriers, and we are trying to fulfill those as we move forward. So Kay will be providing an update on the Homeless Services Division and what they will be doing in our community and what they have been doing. And then we'll move into subcommittee updates. That's where each committee member, committee lead, will provide an update on what's going on in their committees. Then we'll move into next steps and the hopper. And lastly, questions and getting involved. All right, I will now turn it over to Will King, the HMIS administrator, and Will, bear with me one second. I got to go through and find you real quick. All right. It should have sent you a message that you can unmute, and I will now turn it over to Will King for him to present on the homeless management information system. And Will, if you can let me know when you want me to say next slide, I will move to the next slide.
Okay, I was thinking I can share my screen and present the slide, or would you prefer to control it?
Why don't you let me control it, because we did some edits to the slides, so that
No,
way.
all right.
All right, and it's just about the formatting. That's it. Will.
Oh, okay, that's okay. I think it might have taken off my notes then. Let me stop my video to save some bandwidth here, and oh, I see what you did. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for letting me speak today. My name is Will King. I'm with the Coalition for the Homeless. I've been here for about 9 years, and I am the HMIS administrator for our system. Tamika, you can advance to the next slide, please. We're going to go over a few things today. What is HMIS, who's responsible for it, and its capabilities. Some of the federal reports that we generate out of the system, and lastly, the benefits of our HMIS system. You can go on, Tamika, one more slide. Now these slides, I realize I'm trying to keep this to 20 minutes. They're a bit dense, so I'm going to zip through it, but we will allow for questions, obviously, at the end of it. So sorry if it feels like a lot of information coming at you at once. So what is HMIS? HMIS is a homeless management information system. This is a local information technology system used to collect client data and data on the provisions of housing and services to individuals and families experiencing and at risk of homelessness. Each continuum of care is responsible for selecting an HMIS system. There are many different HMIS software vendors in the country. Indiana might use something called Client Track. There's one called Clarity. There are numerous ones. The state of Kentucky uses software called Service Point, and that is maintained by a company called WellSky. And all of this complies with HUD's data collection and management and reporting standards. HUD dictates these specifications to the software vendors, and they plug it into their software, and then we as a community use it and help to implement those changes and to follow those regulations. One nice thing about HMIS is it allows for the aggregation of client level data across homeless service agencies to generate unduplicated counts, which is important, and service patterns of clients served. Next slide, please.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. So the HMIS system is this system is made for or made by for-profit companies that sell it to COCs and that type of thing. As I mentioned, Kentucky uses WellSky's Service Point. Now each COC in a state, and in some states there are many COCs, each COC gets to decide which one they want to use. But luckily, I think this is a benefit to Kentucky. We decided for our 3 COCs to go with one single statewide implementation of Service Point. For those who don't know, the 3 COCs in Kentucky are the Louisville COC, the Lexington COC, and what we call the Balance of State COC, which would be everything besides Louisville and Lexington. Currently, this number is fluid, but currently Kentucky has about 485 total HMIS users, and Louisville has right around 166 users currently in our system right now. And the number of agencies represented in HMIS at the moment in Louisville are numbers about 33. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, so some information about who takes care and manages HMIS. So the Kentucky Housing Corporation, located in Frankfort, is the HMIS lead for the state of Kentucky. They hold the contract with the software vendor, WellSky, and so they handle the legal aspects of the implementation of a system like this, and and all sort of contractual obligations. Um, if there are issues with our software vendor, if they're not living up to our expectations, or if we need major help in some sort of way, Kentucky Housing Corporation is that liaison with the software vendor. Now, KHC is also the COC lead for the balance of state continuum of care. So they serve two roles: HMIS lead for the state, and they are lead for the balance of state COC. Similarly, Coalition for the Homeless is both the COC lead for Louisville and the HMIS lead for the Louisville Continuum of Care. Now, the coalition sort of operates slightly under the umbrella of KHC because we're not a primary or not the primary contract holder, but Coalition for the Homeless and KHC work very closely together to implement uh, policies and procedures that we feel need to be implemented for the state of Kentucky. We make sure that the HUD regulations are followed and that those are broadcast to users and agencies and directors and that sort of thing. We work together to train users, so it's sort of a unified um, response to training, and we also work together to provide data at a federal and community level to best understand homelessness in our state. Next slide, please. So what is a continuum of care? And I'm sure most people in this meeting probably know what that is, but just in case you do not, it's worth going over. A COC is a community plan to organize and deliver housing and services to meet the specific needs of people who are homeless as they move to stable housing and maximize self-sufficiency. Uh, a COC should be composed of primary organizations that work towards this goal. And you can see on the slide this list. And most of these types of organizations are represented in Louisville's continuum of care. We have, I think, a very good relationship with our COC members. There are other states who don't have such a great relationship, and their data and services suffer a little bit because of that. Next slide, please. A COC is tasked with tracking and managing the homeless community in their area through the HMIS. And key aspects of a COC and our mechanism to help collect this data would be to organize our data into project types. In HMIS, I call them project shells, and I set them up accordingly to reflect the type of project that they are. Are they outreach services? Are they shelter? Are they rapid rehousing? That sort of thing. And that needs to be in place sort of behind the scenes for the projects in order for data to be communicated to HUD in the way that HUD wants it. All right, next slide, please. All right, so the relationship between HUD and HMIS and our COC. So as I mentioned, I think I mentioned this before, but HUD mandates that each COC must implement an HMIS system. So I always like to think of that at a basic level. If you are receiving funding of any kind from HUD or HHS, you are required to gather your data and put it into a system that they stamp their approval on. And each year, HUD releases various updates and specifications to the software vendors, to the HMIS leads, and to the COCs. They do this about May each year, and usually the deadline to have these implemented is October 1. And they communicate this information through what we call the HMIS data standards and the HMIS data manual, both of which are very thorough and very boring documents. And they also update their reporting requirements to the software vendor. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So some of the key features that HMIS needs to be able to do is it needs to primarily be able to unduplicate our client data as we put it into the various projects. HMIS does a very good job of doing this. We can, of course, create custom reports that would not necessarily unduplicate the data. It just depends on your needs. But ultimately, what we send to HUD has to be unduplicated. HMIS must also be secure. And this is manifest in multiple ways through our system. The data is stored on servers located in Louisiana that the software vendor manages. The servers belong to us and the data belongs to us, but they manage that. So it's backed up every night. It's very secure. Um, all users for Louisville must come through me for training. They signed HMIS confidentiality agreements. They are given the Kentucky HMIS policy and procedure manuals. Agencies sign agency participation agreements. There are settings built into the software itself to um, not permit multiple logins. It will time out at a certain point, so the data is very secure. And it also, HMIS also creates a localized repository for all of our data, and that's kind of obvious and goes without saying. Um, One of the really nice things about it, and this is really developed over the last several years for the better, is that HMIS can easily define the state of an agency's data quality, both at a project level and a community level. Within our core reports, it is very clear if your data is off the rails or if you are not doing things like reviewing your data annually for clients still in your project. If you are missing a lot of data, if you have gathered data in some poor fashion, these reports really help uh, define that for you and break it down. And so if agencies are reviewing these reports often as they should be, there's generally very little issue when the grant year ends and they have to report. But there's often an agency who uh, doesn't look at their data in a timely fashion. Maybe they're underfunded, understaffed, or whatever. Um, but they wait to sort of the last minute and they review the data quality. And there's no easy fix for data quality. If you just have if you serve a few clients, that's one thing. But if you serve a large number of clients, it could take you a little bit of time to manage that. Let's see. Oh yeah, well, we've discussed it. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So HUD also makes sure that we understand what they call universal data elements. Um, these are core data questions that we need to ask every client that goes into any project. And when you see the list on the left, it's going to make a lot of sense that we would grab this information. It's very general demographic information, but we also grab vet status. We're always going to know the project start and exit date. We try our hardest to document destination when they leave the project, where they're going, and then relationship to head of household. This helps define the family group and the makeup of that family, and then we can capture when they get keys to housing through the housing move-in date. The questions on the right, those aren't universal data elements, but those are very common data elements that um, the questions on the right are almost always on the same assessment as the universal data elements. We're always uh, tracking or asking income questions, non-cash benefits, like are you getting food stamps, domestic violence, current living situation, that sort of thing. And all these questions have to be answered. And if they're not answered in an appropriate way, like um, there's a difference between simply not answering the question uh, versus defining the question as the client refusing to answer it or the client doesn't know, which is a better answer than being completely blank. So, all right, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to federal reports, and there are many federal reports that HMIS has to be able to uh, uh, to be able to export to HUD's system. We'll focus on the LSA first. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So the LSA is the Longitudinal Systems Analysis Report. This is the three components to what our COC reports to HUD. It's the LSA, the housing inventory count, and the PIT. But they're all super important. But the LSA is a very comprehensive report on our COC. Um, so a critical aspect of the McKinney-Vento Act is a focus on viewing the local homeless response as a coordinated system of homeless assistance options versus assistance programs that all operate independently. We don't want the latter there. We want the first part of it, and Louisville does a good job of that. Uh, so we submit this report annually to HUD, and they've been adjusting the time of that. That's not true. I'm confusing with another report. It generally starts in late November, and submission is finalized somewhere towards the end of December. But it provides a critical information about how people experiencing homelessness use our system of care. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so LSA is ultimately the report that is mixed in with all of the other COCs, and HUD formulates a report that is submitted to Congress each year. And so this is a national level report, and it provides information about our homeless service providers and the families that experience homelessness. But most importantly, it informs strategic planning for federal, state, and local initiatives to prevent and end homelessness. Next slide, please. So it also contains community level information on people and households during the reporting year. And for these people served in the households, the LSA would include basic demographic information with interesting ways to break that out. And we can report on length of time, homeless, and patterns of system use. And we can report on outcomes as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so enough about the LSA. We'll talk about our system performance measures. The McKinney-Vento Act also requires communities to measure their performance as a coordinated system, um, in addition to analyzing performance by specific projects. The Act has established a set of selection criteria for HUD to use in awarding COC funding. That's what it's very useful for. They can use these measures to help decide how to award funds through the NOFA. And Mary Frances can speak to the NOFA if she wants to at any point. But it's very good for that sort of thing. Uh, Next slide. So you might ask what the system performance measures are. There are 6 of them, and uh, for our COC, we report on the number of first-time homeless for the given reporting date range that we're working on for any particular year. Um, we look at the length of time persons are homeless. We review that. We have a measure that looks at exits to permanent housing, so to positive exits, but who return to homelessness through our outreach projects or shelter. We review number of persons homeless over the reporting date range. We take a look at employment and income growth for COC funded projects, emphasis on COC funded. Did they come into projects with no money, with no SSI, no SSDI, and were the projects or the agencies able to help facilitate those people getting more income into their household? And the last one is permanent housing placement and retention. Next slide, please. All right, so the point in time count, I would think that most people on this webinar are familiar with the point in time count. This is a count of sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness that HUD requires each COC to do. Now, the Louisville COC tends to do this on the last Wednesday of January each year. And HMIS is very crucial for capturing this data. There are 2 components, 2 sides to the pit. One, we have a large number of volunteers that go out to to document number of unsheltered people not in shelters for that night. But for all the clients that go into shelter that night, we are able to use HMIS to take a snapshot of the number of bodies in those beds for that night. And that helps inform the housing inventory count, which I'll talk about briefly in just a moment. But the PIT in January is a major thing for defining number of people we're serving in our COC. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so the housing inventory count. This is something that Mary Frances does each year. It is not an easy thing to put together. It is an awful spreadsheet to look at by the time it's finished. I don't recommend looking at it, but it is very informative, and the housing inventory count provides a snapshot of our inventory of housing, how many beds we have per project, how many units do we have, um, how many single adults are using those beds, how many adults with children, how many beds do we have that serve only children only, right? It's that kind of breakdown. And it goes further than that and asks, well, are these beds dedicated to veterans only? Are they dedicated to chronically homeless individuals only? Um, all this is in addition to capturing the data because people stayed at those projects. In the background in the projects, we have documented sort of the max capacity for each of those projects, so we can compare those numbers when we generate the housing inventory count and the LSA. So this report tallies the number of beds and units available on the night designated and includes beds dedicated to serve persons who are homeless, as well as persons in permanent supportive housing. All right, next slide, please. All right, I won't go into detail about these other reports, but these are just examples of other important things we have to report on. The ESG CAPER is a big report. This helps speak to our emergency shelter grants. So most of the shelters, maybe all of them, are all participating in this data, and it's very easy to get this report wrapped up in a way that HUD wants it so that we can upload it to HUD's HDX data repository in a manner that they want it. RIMUS is just simply a report that runaway homeless youth projects have to submit each year. There's different criteria, different assessment questions in there, but you get the idea. So YMCA Safe Place would be the only project in Louisville that has RIMUS funding, but those are just examples of other export buttons we have in HMIS to generate our data. Next slide, please. All right, so capabilities of HMIS. We have see, you group them together. Okay. We have bed management module. Let's you can go on to the next slide and we'll discuss our bed management module. All right, so in HMIS, we have a module that allows us to quickly and efficiently enroll large number of clients into bed slots and to exit them out quickly if we have to. The high volume shelters are primarily the agencies who utilize this module. We use it in other ways to sometimes manage particular lists we might have. So our family wait list uses the shelter point module. But what's nice about it is bed utilization can be viewed and updated in real time. So if other HMIS organizations have access through a particular viewing feature, then they can look at this data too. So other agencies can be made aware of bed availability. Another nice thing about this is that we can make reservations to those high volume shelters through our single point of entry office. And I'm sure most of you know there was a time where people just simply stood in line hoping to get a bed. Now they can call or visit the office, and these reservations can be made through single point. The single point of entry communicates with the shelters every morning to get an idea of the beds available. All right. We can go on. Thank you. So another module we have in HMIS is called Client Point, and you want to think of this as the record repository for all of our Kentucky homeless clients. We probably have close to 280,000 records in this database, so it is big. I may have skipped the fact that HMIS Service Point came online, I think, in 2002. This was well before I arrived at the Coalition for the Homeless, but Mary Frances or Natalie might know when it came on, but I think 2002 is that date. And this module was great for several reasons. It deters duplication of the client records, and if we do duplicate records, we can easily merge them back together. I, as an administrator, can manage the visibility across the Kentucky COCs and from agency to agency, the project data. So if there's a project that comes online and needs to be locked down for any reason, data shouldn't be made available to other agencies or vice versa. We can manipulate that in HMIS and Client Point. An example of that would be again, YMCA Safe Place, they serve minors. Minor data by law cannot be broadcast to other HMIS projects and agencies. Client Point is also very good at allowing us to manage households and families. It's easily updated, and this is a great feature because when we can group clients together in a household, just from a data entry standpoint, it's much easier to enroll them together as a group into projects, or to enroll them into services, or to stamp releases of information on all of those clients. This is also where we ask our assessment questions, which would be comprised of the universal data elements, which we talked about earlier, and the other program-specific questions. And this is all implemented through Client Point. And just as a note, we do add in some community questions, something like foster care or contact information. I can create those as well. And if we've created a question, or if the question is on assessment, then that means we can report on it. Next slide, please. I have a sense that I'm probably going over my 20 minutes. I'll try to zip this through. HMIS, as you can guess, can also capture service transactions easily. You know, where clients issued case care management, where they give them bus tickets. The capability for tracking this in HMIS is there, and we can customize that list of services that agencies offer. We can generate reports on those service transactions easily as well. All right, next slide, please. Case goals and case management. There's a module that can deal with this aspect of social work. We can create and track client goals, education, employment, that sort of thing. We can log action steps, and we can create follow-up appointments. It's very easy to generate case notes, and these are secure. These case notes in particular are not broadcast to other agencies. They are locked down per project. It's very helpful, and we can report on those goals and outcomes because there are canned reports that already do that. Now, HUD does not mandate that agencies use or track case goals and case management, but every agency has the option to use it. It's there, and some use it and some don't. But we do not report on this at a federal level to HUD. All right, next slide, please. Some of the benefits of HMIS. The obvious thing is that we can review our data and compare it with the past. Data it's always maintained in the system. We don't go back and delete data. We might clear it out if it was from 2007 prior, but data is always kept. HMIS also is a great tool to help with coordinated case management. It is crucial with our coordinated entry system. Carrie Addison's Family Health Center's Common Assessment Team utilizes HMIS for their project to document VI SPDATs, single individuals, for families, for youth, that sort of thing. There's an auto calculation feature in there that scores the clients and helps manage coordinated entry and possible housing for those folks. We are able to streamline our data through HMIS because in Louisville we have single point of entry. This is our call center that clients can call, and single point can be that sort of front door for gathering the information, and this takes the burden of data entry off of agencies like St. Vincent de Paul, Wayside, and Salvation Army. Now those agencies are responsible for that data too and need to review it and make sure it's okay. But I think it's very helpful that single point grabs this at the first point of contact for those agencies. We can improve agency effectiveness through tracking our client outcomes, and HMIS is great for customized reporting for funders and other community stakeholders. So if somebody asks for a zip code report or how many homeless clients are coming from specific zip codes we can generate, and we do. We generate this information. Next slide, please. Let's see. So we can increase our understanding of the local extent and scope of homelessness. I think that goes without saying, but I said it anyway. We can produce our unduplicated count of persons experiencing homelessness. It can help to identify service gaps. We can determine how many clients are chronically or episodically homeless, and it helps determine which programs are most effective at reducing and ending homelessness, which plays into how the COC attempts to score projects individually each year. So HMIS is one tool that we can use to help see how well a project is working. Is it working well? Is it not working well? And then that might trigger a discussion about funding in the future. Next slide, please. All right, we are at the end. Thanks for hanging on for that ride. If anybody has questions outside of this webinar, you are welcome to contact me through my email address. Me and Mary Frances, maybe at the end, she can help me if there's some questions in the chat. We can go through your questions. And if we run out of time, Tamika, I am happy to sort of compile those questions and answer them individually, maybe submit them to you in the future, and you can kick it out to everybody if you have email addresses. But thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Will. This was great. I guess I'm gonna have to say I've learned so much more about HMIS. You know, I'm an amateur in comparison to you, but this was great information, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to present on it to our community. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next we will talk about, second guys, bear with me. We will talk about housing solutions, the fourth phase approach. As everyone knows, and may or may not know, I hope you do, you've probably seen the big announcement that came from Mayor Fisher around about 2 or 3, no, I'll say about 4 weeks ago. In the actual plan, it was a 4-phase approach or 4-pronged approach. The first one was dealing with the safe outdoor space. Let me back up a little bit. The community probably doesn't know or may know that Louisville received $388 million from ARP funding. And when I say ARP funding, I mean American Rescue Plan funding. It's a great thing to have in our community, to have this type of money or this influx of cash, as they would say it. I'm doing that with a smile. But we do know that we have urgent needs in our community. So we have to figure out, how do we be able to spend this money wisely? I want to thank council for having the public meetings, and then also for Mayor Fisher to put out the output for everyone to submit their ideas to the city on what they think and how the money should be spent. One of those key categories that was mentioned consistently was housing for our homeless. So we're excited to say that we are moving forward to actually have a 4-pronged approach around housing, homeless to housing. The first phase of that is the safe outdoor space. It is a pioneering, innovative approach to sheltering individuals that are just not ready to come in yet. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to provide them with a safe place where they can shelter, and also where they can receive intentional services that are going to be able to be provided on a consistent basis, and having that holistic, comprehensive approach. We will be providing amenities. So they will have bathrooms, they will have food, they will have porta cans, they will have showers, in order to be able to do everything that they would be able to do in shelter. This is just an additional option. This is a pilot approach, and it is short term. We are trying to do every effort, the city's trying to do every effort to be able to provide these individuals and provide them resources and meet them where they are. The second prong approach is the hotel motel plan. And that is a transitional option, housing option, where we're trying to provide them quick and housing, where they could be able to be stabilized before moving on to permanent supportive housing or permanent housing, whichever option that they want to do. The third approach, the third phase is actually permanent supportive housing. And that's looking at having supportive housing or supportive services in-house as for these individuals that are permanently housed in these locations. A lot of what we have seen in our community around our subpopulations of homelessness is focused on mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, reentry, and I can go on. So what we have to do is make sure that we have supportive services that can be the anchors for these individuals and provide them with support, services, intensive services in order to keep them stabilized and also keep them housed. We have seen that it works. Wellspring is a prime example of how it's shown that with these types of services, we can keep people stabilized. And all these other actual organizations that are working in these same venues have shown that these results do work. The last approach of this would be permanent affordable housing. We know, and the mayor has mentioned this over and over again, that our community needs 30,000 units. And we know that equates to $4.2 billion. Well, the city doesn't have that. So what we have to do is focus on how do we create as much inventory as we possibly can with this funding. So that is only one part of how they're going to spend the funding. But I wanted to focus on that because we are the homelessness task force. And this is where we are strategizing and trying to make change and also make inventory so we can move our houseless community into housing and do it rather quickly. So, and also the permanent supportive housing phase will focus on 30% AMI. And 30% AMI is area median income. It's trying to make our households, our community, and those who are struggling to pay their bills, who are living paycheck to paycheck sometimes, to have affordability. It's looking at 30% of their income, and that way they could be able to actually be self-sufficient. So as we move forward, these things are in the process and they're moving forward, but all of this has to be approved by council. So now if everyone can hold their questions until the end, we'll have a question and answer session based off of HMIS, the housing solutions for phase. And now we're moving into the homeless services division. Kay McAfee is our homeless services project manager, and she'll be presenting on the homeless services division. Thank you, Kay, for taking time out of your busy schedule to present today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tamika. Can you all hear me? Just give me a nod. Okay, awesome. So super excited. Thanks, Mr. Goldman. Super excited to take a few moments and just introduce and talk about the Homeless Services Division. I feel like we've been a long time coming. And so let's talk first about the mission of our division. The mission is to strategize and advocate for resources and services to combat homelessness. As you all know, homelessness remains an urgent and growing issue in Louisville. Metro government requires rapid planning, process improvement, and structured problem solving in order to expand existing work efforts and achieve the goals of functional zero homelessness. Next slide, please. And so let's talk a little more about what will the team do. And so currently our Homeless Services Division is comprised of project managers and coordinators. Again, we are assigned to strategize and advocate about resources and services. A big portion of the work we do is really collaboration and coordination, increasing collaboration with our internal and external agencies to improve the homeless outreach. Much of our work is also designed around identifying gaps and barriers. As we talk about our homeless recipient model and the overall network, we want to think about ways in which we can retool and reimagine the sources of funding, our strategies and approaches to be compassionate and humanistic. And so we want to continue to evolve in what we consider to be innovative measures and best practices from our peer cities. Thirdly, we foster partnerships with national organizations to consult on best practices and techniques for addressing homelessness. And so this is really the exciting portion of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Again, we are engaging on national platforms with other campaigns in our peer cities, really watching what they're doing, block by block, from one community to another. And so we always say that 2 heads are better than 1, or when you stretch an original idea, it never returns to its original form. And so we're really trying to stretch our imagination, stretch our resources, stretch our partnerships, and really lean in to talk on both sides of the aisle. Activation. And so where are we? Where does the Homeless Services Division team exist? Well, we're boots on the ground. We're everywhere, community and metro-wide. We activate pilot programs operated in partnership by the Office of Resilience and Community Services to lead viable solutions for the houseless community. And so again, we have spent in the past 6 months much time and many efforts creating new partnerships. Again, talking about and creating pilot programs right here within our community with our partners, sister agencies, and many of our outreach and advocates. We build to understand affordable housing needs for the unsheltered population within Louisville. Again, a lot of that is collaboration, strengthening communities, being ambassadors and being advocates of our houseless population. Lead. Our role is to lead in subcommittee groups, roundtables, and fostering engagement activities to strengthen communities, stakeholders, and persons experiencing homelessness. And so we really consider this to be a strategy of mixed engagement. Again, working with our business residents, our neighborhoods, our ambassadors, of course, our community partners and agencies, and our boots on the ground service providers. They are the experts in the field as we think about and we talk about the complexities of our homeless system, entry and exiting. And so this is the work that our team is collaborating, coordinating, and collectively doing right here in your city. Next slide, please. Our goals and activities. And so these are some of our, what we refer to as kind of overarching goals, and again, the objectives of our team. So let's recap those. It is, again, to strategize on the homeless systems operation overall, the overall network, what's working, what isn't, looking at those access and entry points, as well as what tools and human touch points are needed for an individual to successfully become self-sufficient, stabilize, and ultimately exit and regain housing. Establishing our downtown partner work group to bring the resources, leadership, and voices together to educate, engage, co-create on solutions to end homelessness. And so again, we are taking time to work within our communities. And part of that is our subcommittees, in which we will be introducing and announcing a couple of those today. But we want to really serve in a role in which we are working with our downtown partners, our small and local business owners, and utilize their voices to partner and support our efforts for the homeless initiative work. Partner to improve and identify gaps and barriers within our system. Again, thinking about those access points, making sure that our resources are equitable, making sure that we are retooling what funding is available. Let's reimagine some of the metrics as far as being a compassionate city in our response. Let's educate and empower individuals to serve in this work. We build capacity of assertive care outreach partners, shelter utilization and improvements, and program options that further stabilization and self-sufficiency. And so again, we are really thinking about all of our homeless recipient model and what options are available. How do we make better utilization of our bed management systems? How do we focus on improvements in our indoor and outdoor shelter options? And what programs and partnerships can we bring to our city and best practices to help individuals stabilize and increase self-sufficiency? Another activity that our team is handling is talking more about data analysis and reporting for accountability metrics. And so to know where we are going, we have to know where we've come from. And so we are taking time, we are making investments, working along with our COC to really think about what investments, what tools will help us better communicate, be transparent, and be accountable. Many of these tools will also serve in such a way in which we can share real-time information between our many outreach and volunteers that are boots on the ground. We want to know what one another is doing, and that way we are able to strengthen. We are also able to better communicate in real time and meet people where they are when we have a consistent message. We are researching affordable housing options for our unsheltered population. Director Tamika Laird just talked in great detail about the four-pronged approach, and so we're excited to be at the table and be a part of that discussion. And lastly, I will speak on communications and public engagement. We want to increase visibility and awareness for homelessness and really talk about the linkage to affordable housing education and the housing first model. Again, our organization and the pillars of what stands up the work we do is it is housing first and assisting others to regain housing. More importantly, to make sure that our houseless community has options. We believe in making sure that people have their needs met. And so, I always say people should be able to live, work, and play where they want to, not just relegated to where they can afford. So let's talk about that. How do we reimagine our city? How do we make sure that we stand up the tools that we need? And most importantly, how do we move forward? Next slide, please. Our Homeless Service Division Staff Directory. We want, again, for you all to know who we are and how to contact us. So again, my name is Kay McAfee. I'm the project manager. My email information is here. We also have Kate Hartledge, who's our outreach coordinator. Again, she is boots on the ground working with many of our partners and within our encampment sites. Julia Dake is our innovative communications coordinator. She is working with many of our subcommittee partners to ensure that communication is transparent and that we share education messaging. And then we also have a mental health and substance coordinator joining our team as well, again, to help us really drill down on the complexities of our houseless population and to identify gaps and barriers from entry and exiting our homeless system. Again, please find us on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Again, the Homeless Services Division is anywhere and everywhere within your community. We are located at the Edison Center building. And if you would like to give us a phone call, please don't hesitate to do that at 574-4377. General questions or inquiries or concerns. You may also reach out to hsdinquiries@louisvilleky.gov. Thanks for spending this time with us. We'll see you soon.
Wow, Kay, that was a wealth of knowledge. I'm telling you, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Now we'll move, next topic agenda is actually subcommittee updates. So first and foremost, I'll unmute all so that way everyone who's the code lead can actually step up and give us an update on what's going on in your committees. So first, I want to first reach out to the Community Outreach Committee. I believe this is TJ, Mary Luke.
Yes, it is. It is TJ. He's on vacation, so I'm gonna do a quick report out here. The leadership of this crew has changed a little bit. So St. John Center is now co-leading with the Common Assessment Team. So thanks to Carrie Addison, who's also on this call, and Jeff Elmore for alternating with TJ Martin to facilitate. So at this point, we're meeting every other week, and we continue to focus on strategy. So we've taken some time to look at national best practices for case conferencing. And a major part of that is identifying clients to discuss beforehand in order to ensure the meeting stays on track. So we've taken some time to look at high utilizers of shelters, as well as names of people by location, and then just kind of canvassing the group ahead of time to say, who are we most concerned about? So I see that as something, as we move forward, we'll continue to try out various approaches and see what works best. We have a kind of a renewed focus on housing and a continued focus on housing. We met this past Monday, and there was some discussion on how the group has been helpful for various permanent supportive housing providers as they've been trying to find people who are up, in the chute for housing, or trying to make sure we have the paperwork and the documentation in place so that people can move easily into housing. So that's our quick update, unless Carrie has anything to add.
Thank you so much for that. That was a great update. Next up is Aging Unsheltered Homeless. I believe this committee hasn't met. We are still working on a chair for this committee. So if anyone would like to volunteer and be a participant for our Aging Unsheltered Homeless Committee, we would appreciate that. As we move through these slides, we'll have an actual email address where people in this meeting that would like to volunteer or and be a part of the committees and be a part of change and leading towards change. We would love to hear from you and love for you to participate. Moving forward, the Communications Committee. Julia, can you please provide us an update?
Yeah, hi everyone. So the Communications Committee had its first informational session last week, but we are still recruiting new members if you want to join. My email address is in a different part of this presentation, so you can just shoot me an email if you want to join. But we're going to be focusing things on things like social media strategy, the development of trainings and materials to educate the public, and then a focus on Homelessness Awareness Week. So if that sounds interesting to you, just send me an email and I'd love to talk about it.
Thank you, Julia. Next up is our Low Barrier Shelter Committee. Jennifer.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the Low Barrier Shelter Committee has focused on bars in emergency shelter and clearly establishing procedures for those bars, looking at best practices and how to reduce bars. So that's been most of our agenda. We've also been looking at the data that we have currently on bars in Louisville. Will has been working with us and has provided us some data to see who is barred in HMIS, and we've looked at that and talked about how we would continue to monitor that information in bars and make sure that what is in HMIS is accurate, so that street outreach and single point of entry are able to send people who are on the street to emergency shelter and know what's available for them. And that's been what we've been working on for the last couple months. So if there are any questions, I can take those now.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that update. Appreciate it. Next up is mental behavior and substance abuse. So I can answer that update. We are excited to say that we have a new person starting on Monday who will be the mental health and substance abuse coordinator and also chair of this committee and helping to move it forward. It's exciting times for RCS, always exciting times when you can build out capacity. Let me say that with a smile. So that should be up and running in the next couple of weeks. So by the next quarterly meeting, we should have some really good updates on Mental Health and Substance Abuse Committee. Thank you. Next up is our Affordable Housing Committee. I'm not for sure if Marilyn's on here as of right now. She might not be, but I can provide an update
Here.
on that. Oh,
So
great,
I'm
Marilyn.
I'm just here
Okay.
quietly in the background.
Okay.
So we are, as Tamika talked about earlier, when we talked about the 4 points or the 4-prong approach to this, we are really looking at trying to address permanent affordable housing as a large part of that $388 million. Tamika and I jointly presented an amount to the mayor and the co-chiefs of the different departments. And we were not shy on what we asked for. And we are hoping that that comes through. There is a housing committee that is working on trying to figure out exactly how we want to move forward with those dollars. But I will tell you that we are going to be working on some transitional housing proposals and as well as some permanent supportive housing. We collectively believe, and I think I'm speaking for Tamika when I say this, we collectively believe that if we miss any of those 4 prongs, we've missed the boat here. And we really need to be very strategic about how we allocate these resources, because we're not going to get this opportunity again. So we need to look at really making sure that we allocate enough funding for permanent supportive housing, enough funding for transitional housing, and then enough funding for the permanent affordable housing. And if we have those resources available in this community, hopefully we can get to, to zero homeless or unhoused in our community. If we have enough options for people, we would like to become a leader in that nationwide and really not really have a functioning zero homeless population. So that's about it. There's not too much else to report. We're just, they are talking about the transitional housing and the permanent supportive housing, that solicitation of interest. Actually, they're calling it a request for, Tamika, what was the word they used that I was like, I don't even know what that is? Request, RFA.
Request for applications.
So yeah, they're not doing an RFP, they're doing an RFA, which I'm not savvy enough to know what the difference is, but they're very adamant it's an RFA. And they're hoping to put that out by the end of September. So here we are, the 16th. So there should be something coming out in the next couple months. In the next couple of weeks, for people to start thinking about making those proposals for permanent supportive housing and transitional, because both of those will be included in this first round. That's it.
Thank you so much, Marilyn, for your update. We appreciate you always. All right. Those were the end of our subcommittee announcements. Now, next up is announcements coming from, Julia, you already spoke on the subcommittees and asking for interest for those who would like to volunteer. Sorry about that, guys. The light went out, so we're trying to, it's a cost savings around here. If anyone is interested in actually being a part of any of these committees, please reach out to julia.date@louisvilleky.gov, or you can reach out to catherine.hartledge@louisvilleky.gov. Next up is that now we're moving into questions and future topics as far as for our next quarterly meeting. So if you have any ideas of what you would like to hear for the next future topics, please send us by email or put it in the chat box and we'll put it in the hopper. But if anyone has any questions, this is the time that we'll open it up for any questions.
This is Natalie, and this is not a question. It's more of just a response to the Housing Committee report. The reason why I have this response is because we had the same exact discussion at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Advocacy Committee earlier today. And we were talking about transitional housing and the importance of maybe that when we're talking about transitional housing, it's not the old HUD transitional housing, but something that's designed more like permanent supportive housing where people do have a lease for at least 6 months, so that it could be designed to be able to manage it ongoing, to pay the operations. HUD doesn't pay for transitional housing anymore in that old format. But the example we kept talking about was the Chestnut Street Y.
Okay.
And that is, it's that design, a lot of people see it and think of it as transitional. HUD considers it permanent supportive housing. So figuring out how to work all those different programs, I think will be important as we move along with that design.
That's great feedback. Thank you, Natalie, for that. As we think about those things, we got to make sure we hear from the experts on that and figuring out how do we make it work and make it sustainable for the future. Because as we know, this money, this ARP money will run out in 2026. So as we are moving forward, we have to make sure we think about future planning and how do we make all of this sustainable. There is a question from Benjamin Goldman that's in our chat box that I would like to read. Approximately how many units of permanent supportive housing do you anticipate creating using ARP funds? And this might be directed towards Maryland. Given the disproportionate number of unhoused residents with unmet behavioral health needs, will units be operated using a true housing first harm reduction model, or will housing be contingent on medication compliance or abstinence from substance abuse use?
So I think I'm going to defer to Tamika on this. I will state that that we don't know the number of units at this exact moment. That is still something that we are working on. And I believe that we as a city are really trying to work towards the housing first model. But as far as the specifics of each project, I can't give you that information because we don't have, we're not even to the point that we could put out any idea that of what we are looking at. I mean, we're going to put out that we want permanent supportive housing, and people are going to respond back to us with an application saying, this is our model. And then some group of people will review that and choose which ones are the best, or which ones most fit our desires as a city. And I believe that that will be done in conjunction with Tamika's shop, Kay and those guys, and looking at what the city's goal and overall mission is towards how we house these harder to house populations. So Tamika, you can take anything after that.
Thank you, Marilyn, for that. So as you all are aware, the Office of Housing is handling the bricks and mortar. And the other pieces of that, as far as the supportive services piece and best practices, is what we're going to be taking into consideration as these actual RFAs come in, requests for applications. So we're looking to the community and and when we put out the RFA, it will actually identify the criteria and then the scope of work. We are really focusing on, when we say permanent supportive housing, we're focusing on those who are considered high risk and being able to provide them with those services and meet them where they are in order to stabilize them and keep them housed. What does that look like, Ben? It's going to be really probably, my hope is that we will have a mixture of it, because when we think about harm reduction, we do think about wet, we think about dry, and looking at all of those options as far as low demand housing and trying to figure out what is going to fit within our city and also within the populations that we serve. So all those things are going to be taken into consideration as we move forward and really devise a plan that's going to be holistic, comprehensive, and then also have a little bit of variety in it in order for us to meet all these individuals where they are. I hope that was able to answer your question, Minnie. Yeah, he said that. All right. Is there any other questions? All right. Is there any questions in Facebook before we close out? All right. So
Tamika, this is Debbie. I'm monitoring Facebook, but there are no comments or questions that have come in that way.
excellent. Well, please get involved. The last, to conclude our presentation today in the Homeless Task Force informational report out, we want you all to get involved. Please let us know if you are interested in being on any of these subcommittees and being able to let your voice be heard. So please get involved. Thank you so much for actually being a part of our Homelessness Task Force engagement, education, and then also feedback. So as we move forward, we are still continuing to provide continual care education, the series on educating us, our community about homelessness, and then also bringing to the table presentations and program presentations about what we're doing in the community to help our homeless. So thank you. You guys have a great day, and we look forward to the next quarterly meeting. Thank you.